I've been working with BrightStar going on now 3 years. And just to give you a little bit of history, originally they reached out to us exactly three and a half years ago. The challenges they were having were mainly around recruiting, scheduling, bookkeeping, various tasks. And they were having challenges finding people that, could show up every day and perform these tasks. And it started with one, and then within these companies, they network together. It's a franchise, and it started really, really building. Going from recruiting, and what I mean by that is diving in to the various, systems, whether it be LinkedIn, Indeed, posting on job boards, and finding people that are qualified and want to do this work. Check their certification, check their background, and then tee it up for the HR person within that company for them to interview. So if they found them as a qualified candidate, they could hire them on the spot. And that was what's really important. The tasks are ranging now from, anything from, like I said, recruiting to helping the back end office with their task and opportunities, scheduling, as I said. We have some clients using them for on-call. Yeah.
Yep. So what are some of the challenges when people kind of contact you? Because you've kind of headed up the healthcare virtual assistant vertical for us at MyOutDesk. What are some of the challenges that the typical client or customer comes in saying, I need help with this, Chris?
Yeah, it's first and foremost around, as their client base builds up, they can only service them with having caregivers and nurses to be able to provide those services for them. So that's the biggest challenge. Another challenge, Dan, was, and let's be honest, it's sometimes hard to find people to do this kind of work that are going to show up every day, that are college educated, committed to doing this. And as you know, we're providing the best. We provide insurance for our virtual assistants. So that's bringing the talent level. As you well know too, in some cases, we've been able to provide people with nursing backgrounds.
What are when you're talking to these healthcare providers, because we just landed STEM Express, which is a major COVID test provider. So they're a lab, and they're servicing multiple counties in the US where they're providing lab. But what are some of the things that we can't do for the healthcare world? Like when you're talking to somebody and they're like, I need this, and you're like, we can't do that, or we can't do this. What are some of the things that we won't be able to do?
Good question there, because what happened, and it wasn't, this individual we're providing is, a performer, is going to do whatever you ask them to do. And what was happening in not necessarily a good way was you're familiar with HIPAA, obviously. Some of our clients were having them play in some sandboxes that, they don't know any better not to play in, and they were pushing the envelope with that. And that's something you need to be careful of, because, you're not getting somebody that, you have to necessarily babysit. You can, really push the envelope with them. So you got to be careful. We want to become HIPAA compliant. You've talked to me about this. It's just that we need them to kind of work with us on that. But you would want to be careful of not going down that avenue.
One of our good clients, they've actually gotten their virtual assistants certified in HIPAA so that they can actually work inside of their CRM and provide value to the business in that way and stay compliant. So I think that's a big deal. We're doing this podcast, and we're going to introduce a client or a customer story in just a second, but we're doing this podcast because we want to make sure that we're doing our part as infections are taking off, and as the economy is what it is it's challenged right now because of COVID. We want to make sure that all of our customers and people in the healthcare world know that we're an option. With that, STEM Express, 30 days ago, they were not a client. Today, they sit at 10 virtual assistants, just taking calls and helping people get their lab results. And I know we do this for a lot of healthcare, in-home healthcare providers like BrightStar and several others. But what I want to bring up is, if you need talent, And if your business is challenged right now, either due to a volume or your folks aren't able to show up, MyOutDesk is an avenue for you to explore when it comes to getting talent in your world.
Absolutely correct right there. In some cases, like you said, with this client now having 10, I would say probably 80 plus that I manage, individual kind of healthcare clients, 50-60% of them have multiple VAs working for them now as well.
Yep.
And the nice thing about it is the attrition is unbelievable. I don't think once they stick for a long time.
At some point, you heard about MyOutDesk. Talk to us about that story. Like, how did you hear about us, and what led you to decide that you needed to hire our company to help you grow your franchise?
Well, as with any small company, at the very beginning, it's basically just you. My wife and I opened it. We have a director of nursing who was an RN, and the three of us in the first year were it. We did everything. As we started to grow, and we were fortunate, we've actually been growing about 20 to 25% a year, we were able to bring people on into the office. The office space needs increased, and we've grown pretty rapidly. There came a point when we realized that the needs of the business required specialization in some functions, and in our case, the HR and the recruiting function was the one we were struggling with quite a bit. It was taking a lot of office time to get the labor we needed, the caregivers we needed into the office and through the process. So we started to focus in on that. Recruiters are extremely hard to find in my market. It's an expensive area of the country. We went through a number of attempts to get some recruiting assistance, but because we're a small company and because we had limited means, we weren't able to get the quality of the person, and they really were not able to get the results. We learned about MyOutDesk.com. We're a franchise approach, and so we have a franchisor who makes resources available to us. They informed us that there was an outsourcing approach. We had finally reached a point where I thought we could probably manage an outsourced approach, and business services outsourced made sense to me. So we got in touch with MyOutDesk.com and worked up the arrangements and started down the path.
You said something that makes me interested. 25% growth. My understanding is that you have more than 100 employees working for your organization, and 25% growth is a big deal. How have you done that?
Well, we've got 10,000 seniors a day turning 65 in this country. So the market is expanding very quickly. So the opportunity is there. Rising tide lifts all boats. This area has a very high percentage of two-income households, and so helping with your mother or your father in the home is not something that many of the families can manage. Their time is very limited. They're raising their own families, so there's a high degree of need, a high demand for good quality caregiving. There's a high competition for good caregivers, trained caregivers. The labor costs are very high. So we've been labor constrained, not demand constrained. We would love to service every single family that comes to us, but we can only do that if we get the best caregivers. And we pay a lot for those caregivers. The investment to get a good caregiver onto the team and working productively is very high. So the growth has really come from our ability to bring quality caregivers in and retain them. And we've done that pretty well, but it's a weekly need. We have to hire literally 4 to 6 people per week in order to keep the growth of the business going.
And you've empowered your virtual professional with MyOutDesk to be an integral part in that.
He is our recruiting department, and he has been able to drive us from about 2 hires a week to just over 4 hires a week in the last 10 to 12 months. He's a very skilled individual. It was very cost effective. It allowed us to have the attention and the time given to that function that we otherwise were having trouble getting. And it's turned out to be very, very, the outcomes can't be argued with. We're getting 4+ a week in the doors, on our staff, and that's effectively twice what we were doing prior.
So it's a 4x return on what you would be paying, and you're getting the exact same results you would expect if you were to hire local.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I would not have expected it was going to be quite that successful. Really solid HR people and recruiting people cost $60,000 to $70,000 a year. I thought, okay, it's going to be about half as much, and if I can get 70% of what I would have gotten otherwise, maybe that. But I'm getting 120% of what I got, or 150% of what I used to get, and it's less than half the cost of a really good recruiter.
Thank you so much for being with us today and checking out MyOutDesk. And I know if you're here right now and if you've made it to this part of the video or the podcast, it's because you probably have a need, and you probably need some help growing or scaling your business as the economy and as the health crisis is happening right now. And I would like to invite you to come check out MyOutDesk. And you can see us online at myoutdesk.com. You can also request a free consultation by texting MOD to 31996. And in that consultation, we'll break down exactly the tools that you need in order to have a virtual assistant come in and help your team execute anything that they need to do right now in the health industry. My name is Daniel Ramsey. I'm the CEO and founder of MyOutDesk, and I invite you to come in. It's a free consultation, and we are here to serve you and your healthcare customers.